Actually, it's so strange, isn't it? Connect. Monk, Campbell, scholars are staying there and there. And here, old, funky, dumb, shameless, and be generous, or don't blame the Western. So strange. Oh yeah, I've heard it in the Jamaica. The net or go on Charancho. They've have the Richard Kankara Trashi Dele, then I am around of Angatic. Nature machine that I cannot say to love social work, love as she starts.
So I'd like to offer greetings to all of you. Although I don't know Dharma myself, I've been asked to talk about it, and so I will see what I can say. So Rinpoche comments right here as I've been given the words of my perfect teacher. A little bit too much to do in 3 days. This is about 1 year of teaching, so Rinpoche will not be going through it in any like a methodical fashion.
Shocked.
Thank you.
Doesn't it sound good? Oh yeah, that doesn't matter. Pobayan and Jagaroyan and Janawayan and American Wamarian and Sweden and Shigiri. Shigite, called career, lay Jimmy, lay Jimmy, Sumaki, and then they cut him around. Acknowledge you, Kiriana, and the killer, and by the ship. That the thing I don't live, Zomboy and River. There I am, lay number some and never do not in the and secretary Gyatrul Rinpoche. Given sort of the David on sort of they are the part of this sort of chief and then sort of the Zanda can be there. So the labor was also some around to make a nominal chief and
yeah.
To me,
Okay, I'm going to turn you off and plug the book in. Come back.
Turn to give up. Good notion and professional, the door will know. Then the strange out and professional. He did that somebody give out in your putting around somebody. They give it some tongue, they give it secret in the upper.
What is it? Do you at the carry?
Slingshot.
Yeah, slingshot, any?
Professional chicken dog about it, a German. German be a sauce or then you see the German slingshot and they watch and took
Ale. Slingshot chen any give us argument. Slingshot chen give us argument.
Give up my wife.
Aka.
So got for the jacket.
Aka.
Did you guys hear that?
Oh, that's so. So it's time to tell some fibs here. Now, as I look around, I see, to my astonishment, there are some Tibetans here. I'm shocked. But whether you're Tibetans or whether you're Chinese or whether you're bald Americans, whoever you are, all of us are bound to die. And we die, and as we carry on, our karma will follow us. We can ignore our karma for the time being, but when we die, then the fruits or consequences of our karma will catch up with us. The general principle, of course, is that with wholesome karma, virtuous karma, this leads to joy, to felicity, whereas negative karma, unwholesome karma, leads to suffering. And so while it's very difficult to change others, what you can do is change yourself. You can change your own behavior, but this is to be done by the cultivation of virtue and not by throwing rocks or using slingshots.
Okay.
I did double confirm that. Was it? Dendere sono. Do you have the Gewala Peng Mare Sungro?
Eating is better.
Aha, this was specifically for one person who thought you could cultivate virtue by throwing rocks. And that person is now considers himself refuted.
Maybe true.
Could be a small cadre of those people. Do you paro? Do you pa?
Okay.
Chinese dumplings you can.
Okay, I'm doing so. Okay, good.
Okay, I didn't know to read the Garde. Something good money and around the current Torgo around the Ngöndro. Ngöndro is a boy, Ngöndro, progression. Tambukar Ngöndro, around some Kolagum Sani, Kolaga, that's a day of she got. Kolad, Diareta, Dumareta, Karre. And some did Demba just only the Dumar Demba to courage in a Sunday. Dumar Demba get a garden, get a Jew out of it. Or I must get your Jim, maybe the brevet can relate. Or meat chickens, some of Napachi, who can get Patagosan and our Get the brevet. But if get the carry in your pocket, so some around the town or another. Not Chipoyan, not Smartian, not American, not Chinese in the Kage Panama, not Bobines in the Panama. Get them not just up.
So what is this thing that we call karma? And how does this relate to the preliminary practices of the so-called Ngöndro, which means preliminary practices? Well, these are preliminary, but what is a preliminary? What are we preparing for? Well, the first thing for us to know, to really come to understand, is the nature of samsara. And in examining it, this cycle of existence, we need to inspect whether or not it is really of the nature of joy, whether it's pleasant, or whether it's really of the nature of suffering. Now, we know that the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, but why did he teach these? What is the basis? What is the cause? Without a cause, there is no fruit, there is no fruition or consequence. And so whether we're rich, whether we're smart, whether we're American, Chinese, Tibetan, just taking pride in these qualities or this ethnicity is of no benefit. We really have to look at the nature of the causes of our own behavior and examining the type of results that they will yield.
제가 말하죠. 내가 너한테 정말 심진 어째 탐지 들어와. 내가 만든 게 아니라 누가 너한테 심진 같이 얘기 말아. 내가 너한테 내가 이제도 가리 하고 보는 거야. 누가 만든 누가 이제도 가리 하고 보는 거야. 이 이제도 가리 가니 말. 니 잘나서 보세요. 소소로서. dimre kanda idaniti dungar jimre nika kanda hinja deva jimre nika te kandi naran chitta ha ko ne tene naran chitta ni chichi yub jana ta khasan tere naran chitta zagi naran chitta ene naran chitta yongji kari dungar mata yawa keron chitta phar chi andene karenda chu te ma mambo sniffing chi dan mambo snip chi dan la kar diris na basa samadan mambo chu chi yara mama ganga de jibre se song ya gera de jibre me je dan song ya di mara ko kya ye tarama maran cha de jibre the ignore chi dan ni maran cha tarama chi le hawa cha sang dan chu chi ba dan maran cha chu chi dan so so de jibre ge chawa de po cha ha po ni so kan nei na ma Deva Jamuna, the no some chick, but you are the Tamanda. Magia divinity, David the carriage. Naran building I some dog and give out the commander. Him David the carriage. Not do not even get Ram Ramambas in a Simpson country domain of it. 아람 서 소소 조자 리마야 승부반 아람 서 소소 어미 잔다가 아람 서 도마자 람진 흔들 거라 얘기만 마다 계제 그 말에 나 아메리칸 인재니까 이거로 저 영화를 아메리칸 신이 직전에 득받침 거
So all of us sentient beings are desiring joy. We're looking for happiness, for a sense of well-being. There don't seem to be any exceptions to that of sentient beings who are seeking to be free of suffering and to find a sense of well-being. It seems like we're all in the same category. But if we desire joy, if we desire a sense of well-being, then we need to inspect what are the causes, what gives rise to that result. Where does it come from? Do others really make us happy? Is that the true source of our happiness and sense of fulfillment? Is it really coming from others? So we need to examine exactly how cause and effect works. This we truly need to understand. By examining yesterday's behavior, for example, can we see what the effects are? How does it carry on? And then when it comes to Dharma, some people think that Dharma consists of sniffing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a secret teaching, I don't know.
No, everybody's going to sniffing 10 directions.
Okay. In looking for Dharma, some people are going in all different directions, trying to sniff it out, trying to find true Dharma, like hound dogs. Oh, that's one way. And then there are lamas all over the place teaching, but there are none who teach that karma doesn't exist. These are very prevalent teachings. At the same time, while these teachings are everywhere to be found, we don't really need to sniff them out. It's ever so easy still to ignore the nature of karma. But this is something we need to know and understand well. As we examine our own behavior of body, speech, and mind, we need to examine some of our behavior, is it non-virtuous? And if so, what's the result of that? As we examine our behavior, is some of our behavior of body, speech, and mind virtuous? If so, what type of effects does that behavior give rise to? So all sentient beings are in the midst of suffering, but we are the ones who construct our own suffering. I mean, this is one possibility. Is that the case? Is it really true that we are responsible for our own suffering? Or is it the case that others are really responsible for our suffering? Or in the case of adversity, of suffering, is it the case that this is just mere chance, something that just arises spontaneously, but with no rhyme or rhythm? So one might think that, well, I'm American, I'm above all of this. This is not really my concern. Rinpoche says, sorry, there are no exceptions, American or otherwise. So you're not in some kind of a lofty position by being an American. In fact, maybe it's just non-virtuous by being very American. Depachimbo, big sin.
That's and that's a Canadian. Or this one. Oh, I didn't anyway. I don't live in Brazil. Then I don't give up the Muslim, but they have all she's some of them. Do not get back. Get the Canadian. Zanguza, Rangina, Lima, yes, and Canadian. Then I didn't turn all Canadian. I don't get chisel. We get cheap or relation the same and leader when can they sound, Marco when can they sound, either when can they sound to Satan or what. In Saja Soso Saga, me Jandas and Kerambus, Magiva Sado, one child, Magiva Masana, one child, Yoma. What's a yard? Med non does on c'è yoga the med non does so med also I don't know why say yoga quindi che deva samne deva the sin non yoga naran c'è deva samne ni janda de c'erano so kunno le but so sort of top down. The Tomnan given brevet Catholic, they were the Dunare. If they were the Doki or in Arans and Doki or so sorry. They cannot Marans of Kiba Bogoman, Kiba the Sultan. So the Dumare truth to nothing, Marans of Kiba. The Maratona cannot to Kiba Mare.
So it's important for us to understand well the First Noble Truth, the truth of suffering. Fathoming that, it's important to look to its cause and to examine whether the true causes of suffering are really to be found in oneself. That is, the causes of one's own suffering, are they to be found in oneself? Are they to be found in others? Are they accumulated by means of the body, speech, and mind, again, of self or others? This needs to be all examined. There are many references. We often hear of the so-called 10 non-virtues. Well, it's important for us to inspect each one of them one by one, to examine our own behavior in terms of body, speech, and mind, to see whenever any of these 10 non-virtues crop up. We have the power to either engage with them or to avert them, to turn away from them. We may at times kind of delude ourselves by thinking, oh, I don't have any freedom there. I'm compelled, or I just can't. I don't have any choice. But by adopting that very attitude, we delude ourselves. We do, in fact, have the choice, we have the responsibility. And so, when we engage in virtue, on the other hand, who experiences the result of that? Do we experience the fruits of our own virtue, or is this something that other people can take away? That we do something good and then other people can kind of snatch away the consequences, the benefit? Well, that's clearly not the case. Whatever the consequences of our deeds, virtuous deeds are, we are the recipients of those deeds. And so there are many references to in Tibetan, the Kepa. The Kepa could be the wise, the knowledgeable, the erudite. The true wise people are those who are seeking liberation from suffering. And the people who are not effectively seeking freedom from suffering, they cannot be deemed wise. So we come back to the theme of karma. For all of us sentient beings who are seeking joy, it is important for us to know what is wholesome or virtuous activity, what is unwholesome, and to learn how to adopt the wholesome and reject the unwholesome.
You have to face to face.
So all the lamas discuss this topic, the nature of karma, the nature of actions, and the manner in which wholesome or virtuous actions give rise to felicitous results. Non-virtuous actions give rise to deleterious or negative results. They all say this. But it's easy to, or at least for some people, it's easy to say, oh, well, that's just what they say. That's just a manner of speaking, or just a view or somebody believe. And so we may ignore it for a while, not take it seriously. But eventually, we will have to face it. And that is when we die.
Man, she don't go to don't go Garba to get you never don't go there. Didn't river the harbor. Man, she had. It don't go some detail, the son of Tamil. My very trailer to Jimmy Channels, Tanda Carson, and Channels, Trilla Chego, the daughter. Zakin down at the government, Konji or I at the government. Aranda is getting on to you and at the government, the Taranti taught Teba. Then get the garden. Magivata. Given the curry to marry. It is not a chance to Marab in Marab to Marab, Tom from Mumbai in Gyatrul Rinpoche. Send music, you are they just coming, just did it. Lord Tom Church, grandmother, come back and get the reason that they are talking about the loss on the other. He called it down the patient that it's all carpenters. A dranders on ye, Johnson, carpenters. Everything you are did the matter. Or tell us some of the days at Tamadan. Side him down, one him down, your posing him to the there to get a social choose. Social choose might have natural millet in that. They said that the Managing door shop is it and we are put it. That social children that Zanga Chitri in the thing you can. Social vacuum in the special Mizanda, the special in the current. Social unity garden. Social good. Some Japan social song of whatever. So sounded young. Didn't that thing hang out and the song to Shapiat Baga, courage in it. Cannot the Malapesha Kirshot and Malapesha, the cannot near one dog of us, Sergeant of the courage in it. Cannot lead you to battle, and not go to battle, like you go to battle. Drinking about children, Chibat, down over it. Courage in Masson. So, courage in the Marans and Ngöndro Savat and Ngöndro is something. So, Remedial and courage in the Marans of the Ngöndro. Captain Tandina, Tamanta, Sunday, the God Thomas Summit in the Tosa, Drugianchi, and Tamapa Sunday. There's something about Panga that's a bit too good as everyone. But in particular, they shall come out. I didn't think they use some. Nijamatran monkey chasing them, nine chasing them. And the Java chase regiment. Yeah, there's some of the dates of Tampa. Not Java, and they don't know. You say you can distinct children and the for out on the non zig that so Mario. The children cannot say, the Gyatrul did that, I like the couple did that. I don't think I will in the contract, but I should be up. I don't say somebody that ransoms and ransoms on check yesterday. On check me, the character.
So in the midst of all of this, it's very easy to make excuses in the midst of the importance of karma and following it very meticulously. And we come up with excuses like, well, for the time being, though, I have other priorities. I just have to make a living. I have to make money. I have to take care of my family, my children, my husband, my wife. This consumes a lot of time. This has to be a very high priority. I have to take care of my parents. So it's difficult in the midst of all these responsibilities, obligations, all these priorities. Well, I have to attend to this first. On the one hand, there's truth in that. Certainly, we need to make enough money to eat, to have lodging, to meet the basic requisites of life. On the other hand, let's not forget that each of us here is endowed with a precious human life of freedom and opportunity. The very definition of being a human being should give us a clue here. The definition in Tibetan is mashe dongwa. A human being is one who knows how to speak and knows how to understand meaning. Well, what's the most important meaning to understand? It's understanding the meaning of what is virtue, what is non-virtue. And what are the consequences of virtuous and non-virtuous behavior? We get very busy. We consume ourselves, we get extremely busy with a myriad of tasks, and we accumulate. We accumulate food, we accumulate material acquisitions of all sorts, and as we get caught up in that kind of consumerism, it's very easy to kind of be overcome by a sense that however much we have, it's never enough. It's never enough. So we become fixated on just getting more and more and more. And in the midst of such a lifestyle, it's just bound to be the case that we accumulate a lot of negative activity, and the result of negative activity is only harmful. This type of fixation, this type of priority of acquisition, getting more and more stuff, this has been going on for generations here. We weren't the first ones to invent this total fixation on mundane concerns. It's been going on for, just for starters, 1,000 years. And look at the last 1,000 years of this civilization. So much focus on the external, so much focus on material acquisition, building up things, acquiring things. Buildings are built. And over the last 1,000 years, buildings fall apart. We do all kinds of activities, negative activities, with respect to our enemies. We cultivate negative activities with respect to our friends. But over these generations, enemies and friends die. So this is something we need to think about. It is important to get enough, to acquire the basic requisites of life, to get enough to eat, basic clothing, shelter. But then apply yourself to Dharma. One may think, well, no, but I can get a lot of money, and then I can, once I get a lot of money, then I can actually pay other people, pay monks or pay other people to do pujas and recite prayers and do things on my behalf. And so then I get best of both worlds. I get a lot of money, and these other people will do the Dharma for me. But in reality, it's better you do your own Dharma. Who is going to accumulate merit for you? Who's going to purify your mind? By just focusing acquisition of money? Does it bring us up? Does it bring it down? Purification is something that we can only do for ourselves. The only person who can purify your mind is you. Nobody else will do that for any amount of money. So we engage in preliminaries. Why? 2 tasks. To accumulate merit and to purify the mind of obscurations. This is the central theme of Mahayana practice, central theme of Hinayana practice. And it is for this reason that the Buddha spent 3 countless eons applying himself to Dharma on this path to perfect enlightenment. Why did he do that if he could have just paid somebody else to accumulate merit for him? After all, it said that his parents were rich. He could have just paid somebody else to practice Dharma for him. He could have sat home in the lap of luxury and paid somebody else to practice Dharma. But he recognized the mere acquisition of wealth is really of no benefit in terms of Dharma. And so he cast it off. He turned his back upon the wealth of his own family. Now, if you think the point of all of this is that I'm telling you should all become monks and nuns, you should all take monastic ordination, you're wrong. That's not what I'm getting at. But on the contrary, if you look at the other end, insofar as we're really fixating on these 8 mundane concerns, thinking this is the highest priority, acquire money, fame, reputation, and so forth, we're simply deluding ourselves. So at this point, you might think, oh, why does this old guy always keep on scolding us in this regard? Well, call it scolding if you like. I'm simply telling you what's on my mind. You have right now the opportunity, you have the power, you have the ability to direct the course of your life. If you didn't have that, then we'd be in a very difficult situation. But each of us does have that ability. It's important to take full advantage of it.
손은 내니 그 때문에 나는 손살 거래, 손살 거래, 손이 살 거래. 아니 그다니야 뻥 거래. 맞아. 내가 오지 마. 옛날에 같이 배워서 결혼할 때입니다. 배샤서 내 배샤 직접 써서인데 얘네가 이제 할래요. 근데 봐. 얘네 따라하려. 너 통통 한번 배샤서 말아서 손이라도 하라고 해서. 대마다 결혼할 때 자기 돈에서 손 가라는데. 근데 바 스트럭처 심진 총총 치진 뭐 와, 그래서 상반이 칼라 자야 같은 뜬로다 신전로 양천은 매요니라 사원의 연이라 사통의 연이라 남편은 번도는 사이도 랑 소소소소니 랑도 홍들에 살아있는 뱅크는 아니면 내 그런데 제대로 또 제대로 자기는 좀 그래 대체로 상관하면 본적 근력도 맞춰야 돼. 단 이런 그래 상대적. 상대 대체로 당기는 더 이거. 이런 소소의 차오 대체를 싹 당상. 이런 아리 롱바는 이제 당상 비약건데 여러 배 빼야 버려. 하나도 저 축복인 들어지긴데 소소 부분도 저 마음 밖에 나셔서도 대체 대지긴 제일. 근데 이게 두자가는 데는 저 이처럼 손보 있는 게 스테이션에 가는 거래. 근데 저 일을 내려야 되는 거야. 내가 몇시 성인데 파시 성인데 나는 그 부모만 들어가지 않아요. 아마시 성인한테 grandma시 성인한테 저는 또 waiting to. My grandmother died and then I can get the money. My grandmother died, or my daddy died. I wish soon. Because I get money. Then they come on, top chops, you know what to do. If grandmother, someone they're living face to face, stress or that, then grandma, thank you, mommy, thank you, everyone. Nothing. Then this was just something that Jima that well, I didn't get my share. I didn't get my share. Didn't I? Come together, kind of under the sun.
So when it comes to money, I'm not suggesting that it's not worthwhile to engage in acts of generosity. When I mentioned earlier offering money to others to practice Dharma and so forth, if you have money, of course, it's perfectly worthy. It's a very good thing to practice generosity, to give to others, and so on. But when all is said and done, the core of the practice really is to accumulate merit, to purify the mind of obscurations. And what is this merit? Merit is something that, when cultivated, when accumulated, this leads to the result of dispelling obstacles in our path as we wish to engage in the practice of Dharma. Many people say, oh, I really want to practice Dharma, but there are so many obstacles. Well, the reason there are a lot of obstacles is you don't have enough merit. So it's very important to accumulate merit of the two types, the two collections, the collections of merit, collections of knowledge. Those are very important. And also in the midst of that, also to dispel the two types of obscurations, the obscurations to omniscience, the obscurations to nirvana, or cognitive, and what's the other, afflictive obscurations. That's what's really core. But in the midst of this, coming back to money again, some people, when they kind of get a windfall, they get a lot of money coming in for some reason, they just treat like this was such a celebration. They just get amazed, oh, look how much money I got. I said, this is something really extraordinary. But people have been making money for thousands of years. What's the big deal? And when it comes to, well, what do you do with the money? You get food. Well, whether you're a human being, whether you're an ant, a grasshopper, any kind of animal, any kind of sentient being, just look around. All these sentient beings are learning they all know how to get food. Whether they're living in the ocean, whether they're underground, or living above ground, whether they fly in the sky. This is something we share with all the animals. All the animals know how to make a living. They all know how to get food. And they do that without having bank accounts, investment counselors. In fact, they spend their whole lives just basically trying to get food, to survive. Is that all we're doing? Are we devoting our lives just to getting food and the stuff that can enable us to get food? In which case, what's the difference between our lives and animals? Think that they do so much of what we do, and then think about the differences in terms of our capacity. And then devote yourself to accumulating merit. In the United States, I've seen this all too often, is American people with affluent parents or other relatives, parents, grandparents. They're waiting. They're waiting. What's in the will? What's my mom going to give me? What's in my mom's will? What's in my dad's will? Waiting, drooling. What will they give me? Waiting for grandma to keel over. What will she give me? Waiting for one's dad to die. How much money did he get? How much money will I get? This type of motivation, waiting for your own relatives to keel over so you can get their money, is a pretty cruddy motivation. And I've seen it often. Rather, treat them well. I mean, treat them candidly, treat them openly while they're alive. But this notion of waiting for them to die, and then seeing what's my share, how much did I get? And then when you see I didn't get my share, then bringing in the lawyers, getting the lawsuits coming out. This is pretty shoddy.
Sonam kai ma chiran se sombo yin de ga ga che chupo yin ne ye ta ga ste da na ye ta te chung se ye ta da ko de
Ye ta. Ye ta.
ye ta
Ye ta. Oh, ye ta. Oh.
o ye ta
Ye ta.
ye ta
Lotus.
ye ta
It's only ye ta nenda.
ye ta ye ta ye chupo na ga chupo ne chupo macam dia dah. Jadi yang coba di kemana-mana jembatan kemana, tinggal di mana kalau dia tak tersong saja, tersong kalau saja, tersong kan.
Aneh.
Itu nak jadi kan kita tersong, kan mana kalau mengiwa dengar tersong lah. Dewan kita salah dan itu tersong juga, dewan kita tersong dia, mana tak mengiwa tersong kan, mana nasong terus. Dia tak tersong saja. Ngarang sestenji kita ngarang sekanggat. Dan nama jengkel ngarang ceng, cuma ada mana? Terus dur. Nanti korang besar korang tu tak pajak ngaji hal yang cuma dua. Wah ngarang ceng, maju atau sah. Tetap ngarang ceng treasure cil, terci. Gewa tu cang ni, gewa kan bank ni ngajar, gewa cang ni besar yang apa? Tanam ceng. Orang bank yang baru. Jangan bank itu.
Thank you.
Ya. Bank orang ini.
Well, that's hope. So how should we characterize that? These people who, are waiting like ghouls. Waiting for their relatives to keel over. They can have their lawsuits. Shall we call those yahoos or yekis, or what shall we call those? Come back to sentient beings, karma, the importance of merit, accumulating merit. It comes from such practices as generosity. In Tibet, there were rich people, and among the rich, there were some who really would just hold on tenaciously to their wealth without making any offerings to those above them, without making any donations to the poor and so forth. And we had a special name for them. They were called treasure-grasping pretas, or miserly pretas. So yidat tersum. So no dharma there. And so, while not actually, there are those who are grasping onto the treasures. What's one can say even worse than that is engaging in non-virtues and having that be the only thing you cling to, not even having a bank account. I had to confess. Yes, whether I have a bank account. What can I say? Credit union. Maybe that's better.
Okay.
I'm getting few installments. Get his bank. 나들이 제자 나한테 개와 dunna 개와 방이 받더라 개와 방인들 개와 되거든 개와이 받아 개와 되거든 동아리 받아 다 야고 거의 되는데 소소소소라 때이다 개와 된다 개와 된다 나한테 다른 바로 로가 같이 로가 체인 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 선체인 또 바데까지 간데가 기왕이 줬다 먹이와 간데 줬다 먹이와 된다 이마르게 간데 줬다 근데 다 참고선 저도 뭐랑 가도 내가 좀 먹이와 되는 거 봐. 어떠서 근데 기와 간데 된다 이제 기와한테 야만 가서 그는 내가 그러면 기와한테 먹이와니까 좀 그렇죠 या बस तीन ब्रेवता का सामना करता है तेरी चरण चीज देवा ये यंदे या बात हाको मजेवा के यंदे ते हाको तेरी चरण ले मजेवा मो बस गयो तीन ब्रेवता दुर्गा ते चरण दुर्गे बात हाको तीन देवा तो मार सोला नाला मांचा ये रवा ये ते देवा तो मार ओया रामजोर नाता जामजोर नाजे इधर हमारा चाहिए ini te chama ya tan de chang ge dan da ba ma ran se se ga ma do pa te cham che ne ma ran la chang ye te te ka re che ni ne po ge wa te ras de ma ran la sa ba kan re na po che ta na sam de ta ji ne yo de de ma ran che na niempo top je se ga ora do je sa ni de de tam ba dewa ma gewa ikada hapo ini magewa ke breveta hapo ti dunga le je tai na shaba chiran de klase tene rupi ni chia dani ka samatan ini ji ne chiran se chuna ma para ju pe jamro jamro peso ini sande ni ngada de chiran sa ya pa sa hapo mai gewe yang dan hapo song de 아니 아마라 계속 저 상계라 계속 저 철라 계속 저지 근데 저들나 근데 나랑 저 용사에 딱간에 인도 그러잖아 근데 문도 다래 문도 되는데 아무가 되는데 탐방도 문을 해야 되는데 요동 나발지 다도 저 같은 거 말지는 걔는 저 인진네 이제 랍고 그러면 아 정말 많이 받았는데 잠들 생기는 상태는 정말 프랙티스 같은 거 해요 तेरे संरक्षण देने ते तेरे तरमा ये निजाजा दन माय बदरी मरा चपत नहीं ना कांजी ता तांजी पत तो ट्रामा बट चांस ऐसा ते निजाजा ऐसे यार खाचानी चेकी में मरा खाचे मान में मन पर यार साचे दर तो चंद रिसों दे तो यार यार तेना माय में तो ते चिमा बेना ये ना तेरे इंची ना दा कोई ना दा जानी ये ना दा सोचो अगर हम दम थंगा की तो होते ये सामने जिन चरण से चलो भाव करना ते या कोई उगर मत तमाय बात नहीं हम तो मत बात जन्म जन्म से निमा तपारे सीखे ठीक था रहे थे तो आराम से और मगेवा का ब्रेवत माशे गेवा का ब्रेवत माशे ठीक है सांगे की याद है ममता वाले
So we come back to the central theme, the results of virtue. What are the benefits of that? It's joy, it's a sense of well-being, and negative actions lead to suffering. This is something we need to understand well by looking at ourselves. however old, whatever our age may be, whether we're in our 50s, our 30s, 20s, whatever it may be, review the years of your life and examine to what extent have you engaged in non-virtuous behavior. Examine individual days through the course of each day, review each day, and examine to what extent was your behavior non-virtuous. Not only during the daytime, but even in dreams. You know, it's also possible, of course, to accumulate negative karma even in dreams. So examine this well. To what extent have the days and nights and the years of our lives been devoted to non-virtuous behavior? And likewise, examine what degree of our behavior has been virtuous, has been positive. So in a manner of speaking, put these like in a scale. Try to weigh them to see which is heavier. And then examine what are the results of this, what are the results of our own behavior. It's important to examine, to understand well the qualities of each of these general types of behavior. And if we, upon such review, such self-examination, if we find that there is a lot of non-virtue, then it's important for us to alter our behavior, to reject such non-virtue while we still have the ability, while we still can. Among the Joachu, among the 10 freedom and opportunity, the 10 opportunities, there are 5 Joachu, and Joachu. Among the 10 opportunities, there are 5 that pertain to oneself, that is, are more personal attributes, and there are 5 that are more environmental, or having to do with the context in which we in which we lead our lives. These 10 really provide us with a full opportunity for practicing Dharma. And we have them in their entirety. They are complete. So then with that type of opportunity, then we can ask, why then do we engage in any non-virtue? Why do we engage in non-virtuous thoughts? Once we've recognized there is non-virtue, then it's time to bring out what are called the 4 remedial powers, these crucial elements. And this entails, first of all, again, understanding, well, what is virtuous? What is non-virtuous? What are the results? And when we recognize the result of non-virtue, then it's appropriate to feel fear. Insofar as we've cultivated the cause, then it's appropriate to feel fear with respect to the effects that are bound to come. And as that arises, then we have a real motive for feeling remorse, which is the first of the 4 remedial powers. This is very worthy, meaningful remorse. Once that's been generated, then we need to look, having looked to the past, then we need to look to the future with a very powerful resolve not to repeat or to engage in such behavior in the future. And we move on, and then we take refuge. We take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But this can be done only by truly understanding, deeply familiarizing ourselves with the qualities of the Buddha. Once this is understood, then we go for refuge in the Lama, in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So this is an aspect of the common preliminary practices, and there's no need to go into these now to explain them again. I already have on many occasions, and of course you can find explanations of these in many books. But while these exist in many books, it's important not to treat them like the books in so many temples, the Kangyur and the Tengyur, which are so neatly stacked in so many temples and have been neatly stacked in temples for many generations in Tibet, where people prostrate to them, but they never open them up or read them. They just look at them so prettily wrapped and prostrate. Let's not repeat, let's not continue that tradition of just looking at texts from the outside, but never opening them up and actually reading them. That's one tradition we can maybe do away with. There's one temple, one monastery in Sakya, where the Kangyur, Tengyur reach up, they're stacked very, very high. But again, nobody takes them out to read them. People just prostrate to them. So whether the Dharma books are written in Tibetan, whether they're written in English or in Chinese, it's important to read them. Only by reading Dharma, by really learning Dharma, studying Dharma, do you come to understand it. In the midst of that, many of us may find that our lives are just basically teeter-tottering, vacillating from one thing to the next, kind of always off balance, never really getting stabilized in Dharma. How does that happen? What prevents us from having the real stability in our Dharma practice? It's good because we haven't understood Dharma well enough. We just don't know it. So, understand the qualities of Buddha. Learn Dharma well.
Any dandy Bobakar Kerma Koranso Chichi, the Bobakar Mason Rogan, Chijer Jandat and Mason and Rogomare. What is Simpson Dungeon and Mogeva, something, and Mason and Rogan. Boba in the Tibetan Mason and Roger and Roger. But also chicken and Murba and Moscow, Boba, Chibok, Doan Chanda Home. So I get the J, looks at the J. In the Ramzan lake in the world. Ramzan, where the sort of children. Papa Johnson at the Rayor. Maras Johnson, Mada Nishkan the Karala. Had only computer given. Sonam near Sayamar. My Chikarajan, Maggie Chip Punga, Trum something as soon be up. The Shangar Gum Stomba, trains it, and this Tomba people, and not Miss Tomba, Rose Tomba, to the Chipar. In Janata Toma, Sunday, Chudit, Janatas, Jamdona Casatala, some of the Lama Mumbo, and then the Chu. Yare, Wang Tao Yare, Mambo Dogara, Kandi, Masa, Yagir, Remit, the Charats and Dogare, Remit in a Yabore. The Remit is not a Sunday in your dentist, Chugi your dentist, Gindig in your dentist, and the Remit on the Yabore. The Gazi character Remit and the Number Kanya Hama Pani, Shabu and the Jam Chamson, Pinyan Chambos,
Champo. Champo.
Mashi going Barber and Chanson. Chill, Diploma, Magiva Tata, did it the Kajikan, the Panchi Chichi Red, Saket and Rostan Chichi Red, the Gilak and Rostan Chichi Red, Nyingma and Rostan Chichi, Hidaya and Rostan Chichi, Maya and Rostan Badriana, John Tata, J. Magiva, Chilatin, Magiva. How does this suck it up? The rich around the cons and then Tapati of Kushavan, Kajin Masaka, number Santi by Yena, and the Tapaja. Number Santi by Mayini, Chul Jandara, and chasing Chibogma, Jason Dogomar, tell a Tango Maski, Chupon Milissa, Tata Magia Saka, tell it 3,000. And Sanji the Shangus and the Krubati, the Sanji, Machaba, Maranson, Loy Shongomar, Kain Pogomar, they didn't so that. Come Shia, come Tobar, the dancing in Yamacha, Sitting in that Sitting Yam Plapa, Shanju Semper Plapa in the Shanju Semper Plapa Yamacha. And he come to the Jamdu Donga, the Marla, the Didin some people give it. Until Tom at the time in met, then he made away as I something good. She went blah 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 blah, she go board there, Mama get, can't call you, Maran board Mamma, and you come at it and I'll chill at Mama. And that's my challenge. And my son good, so.
So there were many volumes, many teachings in Tibet, many books in Tibet. But in the midst of that, while on the one hand there was this great literary bounty of Tibet, so many books, so many Dharma books. In the midst of all of that, over history, there have been many Tibetans who have taken lower rebirth, have taken birth in the miserable states of existence. And likewise, there are many Westerners who are also taking, or will take, have taken, miserable rebirths. The mere fact that one is Tibetan or one is Western doesn't give one any kind of immunity to that. If one engages in non-virtue, then it leads to lower rebirth. It doesn't matter what kind of ethnic background you come from. So this is well known. Although nowadays among Tibetans, the newer generation, there are many who are turning away from their own tradition as they're taking to smoking and drinking alcohol, forgetting their own language, forgetting their own traditions, their own Tibetan culture, and focusing entirely on Tibetan freedom, Tibetan independence, making that their sole dharma. So, if I look at myself, my own faults, my situation is that I've not been accumulating the causes even for taking a human rebirth or a deva rebirth. I haven't accumulated that. And so here I am, an empty lama, with my kind of empty body, an empty old corpse sitting in an empty box. That's my situation. Now, there are many of you who have received many teachings from many lamas, going from one lama to the next lama to the next lama, receiving many initiations or empowerments in this kind of totally non-sectarian way or rime way. On the one hand, being rime or non-sectarian is very good, but it's very good if you really know the qualities, understand the qualities of the Buddha, really understand Dharma. If you do that with real appreciation and understanding, then having that non-sectarian approach is good. But without having that kind of understanding, if just one is roving around, just kind of like a wanderer, or like a hippie, is wandering around from one lama to the next, oh, another lama, and not making it, doing so with no kind of discrimination, just following anything that comes along, then it's like you've already slipped into the bardo. You're getting a preview of the bardo while you're still a human being. This is just negative. It's not Dharma. It's not Dharma. And then in the midst of that, if one then is scrutinizing all of these and then passing judgment on them, and saying, oh, this Lama had such and such a fault, these teachings have such and such a fault, these, and going on and on and on about the defects of all the different kind of traditions, then this just leads to a whole lot of negative karma. So if you're a Buddhist, then it's important to have faith in all the Buddhist traditions, not just one lineage or one order or one school, but basically place your faith in all the Buddhist traditions. If you're a Buddhist, if you have that faith, it's important not within this Buddhist context to be condescending or contemptuous of any Buddhist school. Because the karma of that is the karma called chubongwele, or the karma of abandoning Dharma. And that's very, very heavy karma. So avoid that. And also in terms of other spiritual traditions, other religious traditions, it's important not to be contemptuous or ridiculing these other traditions as well. The Buddhism Bodhisattvas manifest in countless ways, innumerable ways throughout the world, giving, offering, revealing a vast variety of paths, of ways of practice. And so, we don't understand that. It's too extensive. So let's be sure not to be condescending or looking down on any religious tradition, any spiritual tradition. More important for us, if we take in samayas, keep the samayas. If we take in vows, keep the vows. Whatever kind of training you're engaged in, whatever kind of practices, keep them. And above all, in terms of your refuge vows, don't lose them. Hold fast to those. As for myself, I don't have any of these. So don't be like me. Because if you be like me, then you just have a negative rebirth.
Smart. Maybe I like smart doing can read to there. Me color tamar there you are Sunday song. Only Sunday the Truba Tota and then some money shalom that I took on that the butter. A cousin cannot get Thompson and give you that debates and had support newspaper. Them are this Sunday the churches and the Truba. They shall get on the same the Tava and Mountain of the Chet singers, Zamban, the Sun Tata, the River, Egypt on the challenge. Samlatanadan donadan China. And then to care on to donadan, she is some of them, yeah. And there is a Shigia, cannot Lomba let the talk of political do. Then the Shigia, I can teach you, say that. Some Carbatone teaches in Australia, but that is also the Jitin should get the Tony. Teach Jenna. A girl, okay, about the courage and the children, the sound you the song. The children to Timothy Jimmy. The youngest don't buy the GR. Saint Kilbert don't buy GR. Do the use on it, didn't get children in the Timothy, the children, you think you get on a better society and top was I lady and you think you get Mashi Gom Yara Dojet gives up here. Cosum Turkina. Karadazina. Come on, the Soto come on, some I mentioned to Hapogre. Taba the children, the Mother Southern, Mumbai, they not better. Come on, give a come on the country, but give a come on the come. Loma than the garden. Come on, Aida. Tabachin will come on there. Some of Matter come on, Mumbai is on there. Other Thomas and put on them. Tabachin come on, the other something and come on the country. I don't say other Martin, I don't say chicken getting corner or the chickens, and get the other. The truth cemetery. Come back from it, one work the truth in New York. You know, they covered the band, the truth is that. You know, the Maranza. Chicken and the Yalana or road like your letter. Madam Maranza, Sombo, cousin, road, Donna, Ramanda. Other in my son from Mombas Yard, Madam, not Jason. You know, the girl son and Yard Magason and Chulatin Magason and Karatin Magason, Mergison from the yard, Mason, not just on the career, Dumar, Trumpet, set up Mumbai, New York. In Calgary. So are abnormal. Some so that's it. I wake up chair ransom, that's all. Tana not to wake up much in the cutting, not to wake up chair. Cannot to matter the Porto chops on the Porto, Morto chops on the cannot to do long ballage in that. From Morto to Chela, you look at the to talk about how do you tell it? Sekolah Porto la telah naik sekolah. Itu sejila tu kerana jadi orang yang gagi apa. Jadi jadi nak ada sekian kota sana, nak cip sekian sana. Itu ni dia apa macam ni? Jangan tergolong di cinta, jangan terjadi di cinta. Kami cinta mula juga. Sesuatu cinta nama macam ni. Cinta mula kita sesuatu cinta kata apa sahaja. Jadi ciar kau baca. Marah berkebat pangan.
So, for example, we have available for us right here this book, Words of My Perfect Teacher. So we have this and many other such books that have been written or translated into English. And so there are plenty of good Dharma books in English. There are many in Chinese, perhaps this one itself, probably so. And so we have available to us many good Dharma books written in our own language. And all of you are smart, you're clever. Changpo. You may be smart, Alex, but you're smart. And so it's important to use your cleverness, your smartness to read the Dharma, to understand it, to read these books. In the case of this particular book, the Words of My Perfect Teacher, this whole lineage, the lineage of Tukus who have preserved these teachings, they are all all the teachers of this lineage are all tulkus of the Buddha. These are all manifestations of the Buddha. So it's important not to read such books as if you were just kind of browsing through a newspaper, the New York Times. The teachers who have preserved this lineage, carry it on into the present day, they're not doing so for the sake of money or any of the 8 mundane concerns, but these teachers have been preserved and taught over the generations for the sake of liberation and Buddhahood. So it's important to read such text, think about them well, maybe ponder them, understand them, and when understanding does arise, then you may feel, oh, now I've understood. Now I've got it. Now I've understood well enough that I can teach. Having the motivation to teach others Dharma, that's fine if and only if the motivation is a really wholesome, a virtuous one. Whereas if the motivation is really more entangled up with the 8 mundane concerns, and out of that type of motivation for financial gain and the like, if you teach Dharma, then it leads only to negative karma. It's important to recognize these teachings. This is the speech of the Buddha. And we're just messing around with the speech of the Buddha. We're fooling around with it, playing around with it when we teach it, but we teach it with a mundane or unwholesome motivation. So we've really lost everything if we abandon the very vows of refuge itself. Upon the basis of Dharma, in the midst of Dharma, having the semblance of practicing and teaching Dharma, will actually be accumulating causes to be reborn in Vajra hell. So that will be the sum total of our Dharma practice, is that with the guise of practicing Dharma, before we're dying, we're just accumulating causes for Vajra hell. This is pathetic. And the so-called practice of Dharma itself leads to hell. So if we can teach or help others, if we're moved to do so, teaching Dharma to others, helping others by way of Dharma, this is good, as long as there's a good motivation behind. So these points are things that we can understand. These are things that we can know. These are explained, all of this, the whole issue of the nature of motivation, the significance of motivation, these are taught very extensively in the preliminary teachings, the teachings on the preliminary practices, where you find detailed explanations of all types of levels of motivation, Mahayana motivation, motivation for Vajrayana. What exactly is the motivation of a Bodhisattva? All of these we can understand. They've been carefully explained. But if we're not careful in this regard, it's as if our world just turns into a cemetery, where we're walking zombies, like living corpses, walking around already dead. And so there are many people like myself carrying on the semblance of practicing Dharma, whereas we're just heading for a lower rebirth. Whereas those who devote themselves to virtue gives rise to a wholesome rebirth, a wholesome or a beneficial rebirth. But it's so important that we don't engage in non-virtue by way of Dharma, that is, having this semblance of Dharma, this charade of Dharma, and in the midst, or as a consequence of that, take a negative or unfavorable rebirth. So in the midst of this, all of this, don't ignore yourself. Don't ignore yourself. It's time to wake up. If you don't wake up now, when is the time going to be ripe for you to wake up? To kind of get real? Are you going to wait until you're old? Are you an old man, an old woman? Some elderly people, when asked, oh, how old are you? They get upset, they get pissed off. Like, they don't like to be asked how old they are. Why? What's the problem? Why should anybody be upset to be asked how old they are? Maybe one of the things is fear. They are not happy at the fact that they're old. They're not happy at how they've lived their lives. They don't want anybody to know how many years has gone by. So come what may, whether we're following Buddha Dharma or some other type of spiritual practice, some other spiritual tradition, it's important to practice Dharma of some kind, engage in virtuous or some spiritual practice of some kind. Because all of these religious traditions of the world, all of these encourage us to abandon unworthy behavior. It's called marab, unworthy behavior, behavior that is, I used to have a good translation to that, kind of low, and to apply ourselves to what is yarab. It's marab and yarab. Marab. Marab is like this disgusting, like low class, crude, vulgar. That was how I used to call it, vulgar. Avoid the vulgar, and yarab, and apply yourself to noble behavior. That's really the core of it. No matter what spiritual tradition you follow, that's the core of it. Avoid vulgar behavior, demeaning behavior, and follow that which is truly noble.
It's great, isn't it? Yarab Marabs. Do you understand? That's the Buddha.
자기지 열어봐라. that's it. 말아 그랬어. 아니 말아. 딱 열어.
You have to face,
It's a whole. You have to do the whole the mudra and the facial expression. It's a whole ritual.
We don't understand. Okay. Anyway. And what's a Jimmy? Marab Zikit. When they give me a boy and another what the neck come that day now. Yarab Joba and Chu to show the then I want to the name. I'm joining you back. Check to some of your pose, a tiny give on what give any guys in your closet. Give that she's on the I'm joining you back. I'm joining not talk to Tara yet. I'm joining another Tango Mendo engine on a theatre. Not a Tango do it. Oh, not a Tango, it's somebody. And then what happened to me? Why? Consciousness. Not a Tara again, Javatin Tumble, I'm just Jacket. The country. The letters. Mumble and then we can't get the time to check it at some Tanga do the council. Check the council. Miss John that in the Tajin and Kebata, John the Tajin, Michiana, Maransa, Saskana Tajin. That's a Muslim day. So that young Tabat Matana Tangi Tamsijo. Tana Jesse Ramsey, then Tola Mudaya, Tola Kande Mudaya. Tamja Judge the Tana Mazak, Judge the Murpa, Tamja millions of Tabianaya, Murtapade. Say Murtapas. Murtap. Then you can tell Murtapas on the Tarishan of the one. She's only the Tari big petition. What's him? He did a Tarin and she will go on to something. Gene, too much in the middle of the social ceremony, Sharon. She changed the sound of your body, Sharon. She the gun is jail. Chimbozi, that Chumchonzi. That's it, the Chimbozi. Which you check them, Sansa. You check what? Then cut each in the girl, Timothy, you said that. I'm your butcher and door. Check. She then your butcher, your body cheat the Chimbozi. Young Tapas, Chimbo than the young Tapas. So some local mathematics. She young Tapas active than the you need to choose young Tabachi started. Then he came out and do not get her own Tabachi, then they're a triple rage. Any about it. Should I have some give it, some give it just in Julian. So that done. The mother Jim, some children like the door again. Zansham the Pun, and also Zansham the Pun, some give it Shabden. Children. Zansham the Pun. Now look at it. Such a mean now long. Some the same Plabay and now long. Some are not the children with Pansikas. Mom was the same now long. Pomsha Tanjan, now long. Toba Tanjan, now long. Ponto. Young now. I think Chilon is in the pond. Poet and the children without words sharing on music. That's something like that. Talk about the number bay. The young Tony on the day that Taran was the treasure lost in the made a moon chop. You think you get to tell us something? You don't matter. Cannot talk about the million. Round didn't be known by the children. I don't. 봉화 판서 정말 맞추는데 되는 거 연대 답하다 담아 이제 현재 답하지 이 연재로 이 연재에 나눠서 남는다 답아야네 현재야네 홀라랑 민정한테 이제 내 정도님한테 가른 가지고 있는 팬텀 문제래 나빠 있는 팬텀 문제래 뭐야 뭐든지 나눠니 ponto privante carta disgena nolo te veda chuloni chano te tublo chini rabate chijar incident ramada kasamaje de shape che kana bidir chini rabate ramada topa in the channel chale tin be chom chola person de topa in the ishi be tuko chamba de chande kan no
Pongo penso tan. Oh yeah. So, with respect to this vulgar and noble behavior, it's important not to be like me and be totally shameless with regard to degrading behavior. That would be another word. Marap, degrading behavior. Not to be like me, but recognize the difficulty of obtaining this precious human life of freedom and opportunity that consists of the delicate, the 8 freedoms, the 10 opportunities. So each of these 18 components of a precious human life, to examine yourself, to see whether you have in fact all of those, whether you're complete in all of those 18 qualities that provide the perfect platform or foundation for practicing Dharma. If you do, if you find that if you're complete in all of them, then you might ask yourself, well, why? Well, what happened to me that I have such attributes? And what benefit is there in having such freedoms and such opportunities? Because everybody has these. You might think that your own situation is very common, that everybody really has the same opportunities and freedoms. But if you think that, you're wrong. Look around. We're all very good at seeking out the faults of others while ignoring our own faults. But look around and see what kind of freedoms and opportunities do the people around you have, specifically in terms of those 8 freedoms and the 10 opportunities. Examine your own life again and see, do you in fact have all of those? Are they complete? If they are complete, then take delight in that, appreciate that, and use them well, take full advantage of them. If they're not complete, then do whatever you can to make sure that they are complete. But whatever your situation, whatever qualities of your life, in terms of these 8 leisures, 10 opportunities, whatever they may be, the long and the short of it is that all of our lives are impermanent. We are subject to impermanence and death. Death will come one day, and that's the time when karma catches up with us. So now is the time to practice Dharma. But what kind of Dharma shall we engage in? Shall we engage in big Dharma? In small Dharma? Well, we should do what we can. We should engage in the largest Dharma that we can. With the recognition that we will soon die, we should have a similar recognition we must soon practice Dharma. And we should practice big Dharma. What does that mean, big Dharma? It means genuine Dharma, Chö Yang Dapa, authentic Dharma, true Dharma. Now, does this mean that we should then all become monks? We should take monastic ordination, become monks or nuns? In general, that's a good idea. It's a very good idea. It's an incredibly good idea, in general. On the other hand, there are those like myself wearing robes, walking around wearing robes as a monk or what have you, where we're actually embarrassing the Dharma. We're ashamed to the Buddha Dharma by wearing Buddhist monastic robes. who actually bring shame on the Buddha Dharma. So the really core of this is not the external garb. It's not the outer display. The real core of practicing big Dharma, engaging in authentic Dharma, is inside. It's inner. The very nature of ethics, leading an ethical way of life, this is a matter of our inner life. The whole Bodhisattva way of life and the Bodhisattva ideal, this is inner. It's not just an outer display. Likewise, in terms of keeping samayas, whether or not we're keeping our samayas is something inner. Likewise, in terms of what I call the bongcha, things to be abandoned, things to be dispelled. The things to be dispelled by way of Dharma practice are inside, not outside. And likewise, dokpa, realization. These are also not external things. Realizations are all inner. But we, ever so commonly, become fixated on the external. We're looking outside. So when we want to get rid of things, when we want to abandon things, we're looking outside for things to abandon that we somehow think will give us greater sense of well-being and happiness. And when we're looking for realization, we think maybe we'll find it through a telescope. We'll look for something really far away and we'll see the realizations of some kind of a treasure out there. If I only knew that, then I'd really have realization. As if this realization is something we can find from outside. What is the real nature of dokpa, or realization? What's the symptom when realizations have arisen? How do we know that? What's the indication? Our mental afflictions decrease. This is a sign of gaining realization. What are other aspects of having true internal acquisitions? It's the arousal of faith, pure vision, compassion. All of these are inner qualities. On the other hand, if we lack faith, lack pure vision, lack compassion, don't even have any sense of true renunciation or the spirit of emergence, then there's no benefit even if we are monks or nuns. There's no benefit even if we're practicing Vajrayana, if we don't have these inner qualities. So in terms of purification, of getting rid of the bongcha, that which is to be dispelled, well, we don't get rid of those by bathing and using the latest style of soap. We don't shave them off with a razor. In terms of the realization of these acquisitions, these things to be acquired, you don't get them by putting on lipstick or other kinds of ornaments externally. So it's all inward. Well, it's a mistake to think that this is really an outer aspect. In the meantime, or maybe the Seta monk we lead out here. The Seta monk, this maybe leave. Seta chi yomai. Seta gomane. Seta gomane loki chede. Okay, I better say, I'm here the interpreter. Oh, Rinpoche Kadasa refers to the skinny monk behind me, to his left. Skinny monk who studied Seta. Skinny monk who's been trained in the group, in the debating and so forth. But is he really upholding the tradition of Tsongkhapa?
Who knows? Ask him. Really torture him. He's a scholar, therefore. Scholar people need to torture. But if you torture, debate, the Dharma debate, we can't. Just even here, Can't believe he's a scholar. Other one means a scholar. That guy, he's a scholar, therefore, he's still in the pork. Did you know she got pregnant? Did you know the Karina? Pantoni, I hope for now. Pantons of that, about the second to half of what or not. Then, how can I be the opposite Karakan? They didn't have to chew London road. Random in a Dukayard. Jandon, Dukayard. And my Karata car came like a love me. Some Canton head. Zigzag. Don't bother. 나랑 저 똑같아요. 뭔가 간데를 했잖아. 나는 나랑 저 착독 매바제 정도가 뭐라 착독 매바. 턱바 매바. 착독 매바. 아니 자꾸 생각이 가네. 착독. 자반 너무만 너무 그렇다. 지금 잡아요. 얼마나 뜻이 정탐나. 저사 그반이 자반 좀 턱바제를 이렇게 말했다. 신주 신주패 턱바. 난 차바 매제된 드리던 마다번 농아 탐제 따바를 양송하러 왔더니 그래서 아마 중요성은 좀 차바 통바제들은 통바 매바데 내가 그돈 똑똑한 다들 아야 통바 매바데 톡 맞아 딱 제사 제 매바데 딱 제가 영문 Dibanda Tasumari, Shishi Dibanda, Pachadan Chibet Tasumari, and the Sange Sumari. Chattering. What that tea checked, that didn't answer, Karichin, Pesasana and the Perek, Karichin and the Perek. Rokan giving numbers here, Jamle and the Perek, road the compound, Sapam was an air.
Rokamba, Dinaja, Rokamba. Dinaja. J'ai là. J'ai. Non, non, mais là, ça. So we have these two words, the Banjara, Bangdo, that which is to be abandoned, that which is to be realized. And it's very important for us to gain a clear understanding what is to be abandoned, what is to be dispelled, eliminated, and what is the realization to be achieved. Now we can say, well, what's the benefit of gaining such understanding? The benefit is that our Dharma practice will actually turn into the path to enlightenment. It won't be just sporadic virtues here and there, but actually the Dharma we engage in will turn into the path that will actually lead to enlightenment. Without that, without understanding what is truly to be abandoned, what is to be realized, then we don't acquire our own ends, we don't achieve our own ends, and we don't achieve the well-being or the welfare of others either. Without that, there's really no benefit in our practice. And so when we speak of what is to be abandoned, what is to be rejected, the real gist of that is purifying attachment. It actually has two aspects to this. One is a purifying of attachment, and then secondly, this dispelling of what is called shijib. These are the sometimes called obscurations to omniscience, or my highfalutin term is cognitive obscurations, but that is that which obscures or obstructs the path to the realization of the omniscient state of Buddhahood. And so in the course of that, in the course of purifying these things to be abandoned, then what is acquired is that what is dispelled is the impure vision, and that is replaced by pure vision. And as a result of the pure vision, then we really come to see ultimate reality, the Ngöndro, the definitive truth as it is. And the result of seeing truth as it is, the Ngöndro, definitive reality, definitive meaning of Dharma, the result of that is achieving Buddhahood. So this is to be achieved by all means. Whether if you think you can do it by getting money, then get money. If you think you can do that by building mortuaries, then build mortuaries. And I just wanted to confirm, he's like this place, and he said, yeah, you're a zombie. And so, he's referring to a translator, you're a living corpse. And I said, yeah, I feel like I've come home. And then he looked over Rishi, and he says, he's got a big corpse, he's a big zombie.
Here's a zombie. No, Chapter by the sun is not telling us wouldn't do it. Pay up on the rock. Yeah, but the chapter members and the sun is and everything. Yeah, very well. But you put him back then, I don't know. That is it. Get the Nico Moshi for it. Moshi. And then the machine something on the Pong Sha. Kang Yin, Long Sha Kang Yin. Pong on you can handle or money. The change. What it's a then I got a challenge in chicken on the state. I get him out. Among the Ngöndro Chi, Ngöndro Dzogchen, and Ngöndro Dzogchen, among Buddhism. But imagine the Chi Ngöndro the Yapo canon, Yapo the Shi then. Some Yapo the Tongue and three. Jin and then the Ngöndro Suna, Penny. Me on Gyatrul with each other. The Neon Pan talk a day. My Karan Dzogchen, Marathon. You know, the Bai Chimbo. Church chamber, Uma chamber, the chamber of Mumbai, the chamber of Ishikuwa chamber, the chamber of Gala. Gana cannot to somebody. Chamber to Toya, begin to sound the Tomba. Mother, the catching was of the Jan, the younger one. Cut down the Marabi, Mumbai, the cow down the Katana, Kadan, Kana, in the young give my other shoes and top. Give out of the young. Obagan Malari got to the Pongo Pongo Red Duba. Kadam and the Kono top did the Kono top tower, chop from the there's some can get in them. Patrul Rinpoche comes on my son or something. There, some get there. And comes on Landi Jamon, the comes on the comes on. If God comes on there, the Amala comes on there, when do somebody? When do somebody courage and leave somebody there? Suppose there? Or hang something there? Katrina? That is Chapo Mela. Chapa. Oh no, Ponsha comes a Ponsha. It doesn't go. He goes on the Lama Tenders Kishan. Then I don't say a lot of goes on that. He is some drunk and he cannot just tell you. Any terrible. Sematabadam, Koran Yamata, Jim Greta, Tato Payanta. Or shining attention to Ijiton, Gentry Garden. Did they? I cannot the time, or a young Lachisirat. They give the Lachisirat. Have a Panya Lachisirat. I shining tensor. Then he cannot tell me. I don't tell you younger than that. Malani, you cannot tell you. Shining tensor. Shining the trouble with that trouble with the shining tensor. Marek. Instead of there was a quasi that Lama, Lama thing. You don't come in a team over a going to Bob. What to the social travel that some years ago, some years loves your girls. The current son of Mayan and Channel something, you should out of it, what you saw with some years ago. Maya. Some do somebody given some December channel up to the police. A trip in the trip of the channel up to the police. Why? May music minor, music get chain up to the channel. Then you generally just get channel by Yama. Madam said, you might have to drop points, you might have to drop lines. You might have a boyfriend, you might have a girlfriend, you might have. Oh, I think he's my friend. She's my friend. Teacher. Neither me nor my teacher and not only loves me something, better than me. You know what? Another Sunday, this is after commander. Give it up as a this year, I'm so she might want. What did the church and not me? Look. Sorry. What did Master Katanda and Polar started? She London and Royal. Then they can't go at the ticket. If Lama still done a Sunday make up a Mumbai, it's all what can they in Nana San quality? who come all of it and German, Japan's pay of me. The book and the super in me, smart in me, and study about that. Who you understand the sheet is argued, not so you know the word. We got a car, was a session that, hey, he's good, he's speaking. I like his word. Because what? Mixture of the samsara, government. Thousand around the Sunday, I think, Mandala, Yavani, Yavan Machi, young child,
Good time.
young child. On such a transit for it. They bend on Machi, Ramana to put it. Then Mama Mubata and go to China, and go to Gare. The customer is ten Loma. Lama is in Natural Tapamadova. Lama should tell the Gumba to Yan and daughter. Then you see, oh, the Duba. So, Lama Tabaya said, children not even driven. Chenlap, the Lama Chenlap, driven near the Mangarism. Lambra, Jungarism. I gave a stop at Chagar and something. I did you with other than the teacher. Lama did that. Oh, he's my teacher. He's my guru. So what? Hang out. Then the Lama Chen said, oh, he's passed away. Oh, shit. Have you seen that to say what? Too much right. This is the guilty. Hang out. Kung sa tanong sa doktor dati ada doktor chum dati doktor yang tapa pama dati na zongge ya pun tahu orang panci kangga jadi doktor dulu juga. Women chasing the man, men chasing the woman, and then dog, and then after 30 years old, and then you're getting regret. The second one, and then man kan jalan sekarang kata, dia luar, dia orang Dubai. What 정말 데리터 로맨스 답하니 그러나 연단자 내단자 소소의 남들이 상계의 연단들 그렇게 성계돼 근데 얼마나 이제한테 정말 각도지대가 말절지대가 노차지대 자동모선도 간다는 시이다 이 자동모선 그 삽대 가리는 거를 답하다 담나 와신지는 현지 이제는 뭐 Then 저런 저 깨름지. Now, the Hajaga herders in the toy in that join herders. Then somebody. That is important. I don't know. Jiva does in a pay, put your hands something. Now, they didn't have to be government. Tông nhiệt chỉ ta, dầu râm chỉ, tông nhiệt cái năng được phát sóng nhiệt, tông nhiệt đấy, nên tông vào hấp chất phát, chặt tao vậy, tao mang ngắt thôi bom xịt vào, cái chân mình xịt, nó làm sinh cái là chặt, dừng vào, my way, nghe được sốt, chết anh đi, giờ lúc bắt đầu sốt. Jadi buat kamu itu kan yang apa tadi? Cerita itu. Kalau itu deh ada tak yang ada yang ada.
Sulit ada yang ada. Jika. Oh.
Tak yang tak yang ada tak yang tak. Mereka kan kalau cakap lama jadi jadi macam Gypsy jumping on music, you but the song you could try about the hop or your barwa. Take it time of But can you do it?
Oh yeah. Where did this start? Oh my goodness. It's the whole page. Okie dokie. So, how is it that one achieves Buddhahood? It goes back to this theme of chaktok meba, chaktok, freedom of the attachment, freedom of the obscurations, even to omniscience. This is how that takes place. This is something good. In order to proceed along that path, once again, we need to know what is virtuous, what is non-virtuous, what is to be abandoned, what is to be adopted. And we need to understand this without error. That is, we need to have a non-fallacious, a veridical understanding of these points. And so they're the outer preliminaries. They're the outer and the inner preliminaries, and it's important to know these well, beginning with the outer ones. And as you gain a good understanding and practice of the outer preliminaries, then you go on and proceed to the inner preliminaries. This then leads to good benefit. But it's important to establish such a foundation, and not just to get fixated on the grand names, just to be fixating on names like Mahamudra or Madhyamaka or Mahamudra and so forth, or big corpse like Lama Yeshe, big corpse. Not be focusing on the big names, but know what are the actual causes of Buddhahood, and not just be going around with a big mouth looking for the biggest, most, how do you say, esoteric, most exalted names one can find, because after all we will die. And if we're just going around not establishing any true foundation or essence to our Dharma practice, but just going for the big celebrity names, just the outer veneer, then in the midst of that, all we'll be doing is applying ourselves to more non-virtue. So Milarepa was one who really applied himself to authentic Dharma practice, and in so doing freed himself from the afflictions and from the obscurations to omniscience. Patrul Rinpoche was another, a Buddha, who achieved such realization. Now he is the author, of course, of this text, the words of my perfect teacher, Gunzang of my, it's not quite a literal, it's a very good translation, not exactly literal. Gunzang means the totally good. Well, what is totally good? What is totally good when we see Gunzang Lamesha? It's here translated as perfect. But the more literal, kind of clunky translation would be the words of my all-good teacher. But who is all good? Is it good? It's just a good man? Is it a good man? If you find a good man, is that a person who is all good or perfect? Is it one who is rich? One who is handsome? Are these people? No, the real answer is that which is all good is Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra is the all good, the perfect one. Why? Free of all afflictions, chakto mepa, free of all afflictions, free of all obscurations. So how do we approach that? By understanding, really fathoming the faults of samsara, appreciating the virtues of nirvana, developing a true spirit of emergence or renunciation, and applying ourselves in the proper relationship with ourselves and our spiritual mentors, our spiritual friends, Gyeshinyan, our spiritual friends, or in short, applying ourselves to Guru Yoga. But how do we regard our spiritual mentor, or Lama? Not just as a friend. In the practice of Guru Yoga, you look upon the Lama as being indivisible from the Yidam, as being indivisible from the Buddha. And by having such pure vision with respect to your Lama, by looking upon the Lama as the Yidam, as the Buddha, then you receive the blessings of the Buddha. Even if your Lama isn't the Buddha, you still receive the blessings of the Buddha. If you look upon your Guru as a Bodhisattva, you receive the blessings of a Bodhisattva. If you look upon your Guru as a Siddha, or as a Mahasiddha, then you receive from your Guru the blessings of a Siddha. But if you simply look upon him as another person, a human being, just a human being, well, maybe that's a little bit of blessing, just as a human being. Maybe a human being you regard as a little bit better than yourself. Maybe you look upon him as a dog. I don't know about any blessing there. You might look upon your Guru and simply say, oh, this is my friend. This is my friend. This is my spiritual. This is my friend. And in some respects, he's a little bit better than me. But in that type of totally mundane, prosaic type of vision, there's really no blessing. And without such blessing, then your Dharma really does not lead to the path. your Dharma doesn't turn into the path to Buddhahood. And so, even if even in the midst of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the world, if we don't have the pure vision, then we don't receive the blessings from them. We just see them as we're asking, or are they rich? Are they smart? Are they articulate? Without any pure vision or vision of looking upon the Guru as a Buddha, we may just like some qualities of them. We say, oh, this one's very articulate. This one I like. This one I like. So it just becomes really basic. All gets reduced to just samsaric preferences, liking and disliking. So our very attitude towards the Guru just becomes mixed up with samsara. And it's just a samsaric relationship, even if the Guru is a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. So in the modern world, who are Buddhas? Where can we find some Buddhas? Well, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's one world-renowned. He's a Buddha. Tibetan Rinpoche, a Buddha. Patrul Rinpoche, a Buddha. In Tibet there are many others. But even in the midst of such great teachers, if we have no faith, then our Dharma doesn't turn into the path. Eventually we die, or they die. And then in retrospect, then we say, oh, like we're surprised. Oh. If we have faith in our Gurus, if we have this type of pure vision, then we swiftly receive benefit. We swiftly receive blessings. We swiftly find that our virtue increases. We gain strong virtue. But in contrast to that, we might just say, oh, just kind of more casually refer to our Gurus as, oh, that person, that guy, he's my teacher. Or, oh, he's my Lama, he's my Guru. But so what? Just a person we kind of hang out with, kind of really casually. And then eventually, after some time, then the Guru passes away and we say, oh, shit. But this implies we didn't really engage in any kind of Dharma practice at all. Now in the mundane context, there are people who, again, have no practice, they know there's no Dharma, and even with all the support from their parents, the encouragement of their parents, encouragement from the government, I mean there's schools, there's scholarships and all kinds of things, all kinds of opportunities for getting an education. There are people who don't apply themselves to it, take no advantage of these opportunities, and instead just try to find boyfriends, girlfriends, start taking dope. The years pass, they get to 30 years old, they still don't have an education. Then they can't make a living, they can't get any money. Then they feel regret for all their lost opportunities. And then at the age of 30 they think, oh, I better go back to school. I think I probably missed something like, oh, an education. Well, Dharma's not like that. Dharma's not like that. So it's important for us not to get fixated on the fancy names. They're kind of just looking for the most exalted or esoteric teachings we can find. Really focus on refuge, bodhicitta, spirit of emergence or renunciation. Recognize the nature of samsara and fear it. There's something worth fearing there. And we do have the power, recognizing in the midst of that, we do have the power, we have the ability right now to abandon non-virtue. These 10 non-virtues are types of activity that we can avoid. Now when I say this, when I'm emphasizing these fundamental aspects of Dharma, I'm not suggesting that you should then abandon Dzogchen, or kind of just disparage or have a casual disregard, or Dzogchen for Mahamudra, for the Mahamadhyamaka. But don't just get fixated on the big names. Go back, what is the true nature of taking refuge? What is a Buddha? When you examine the Buddha, is a Buddha a Purusha Pramana? Is he an authentic teacher, an authentic individual, a true refuge? If you really come to understand and appreciate the qualities of a Buddha, this will naturally lead to taking refuge in a thoroughly unmistaken way. And that will open up the path for genuine Hinayana practice, Mahayana practice, Vajrayana practice. Your Dharma practice will truly turn into the path. And that is what Dharma really is. As a result of that, as a result of engaging in authentic Dharma practice, then envy, craving, hostility, all of the mental afflictions, they gradually decrease. So the symptoms, and so on the one hand, the indications of practicing authentic Dharma are that our mental afflictions decrease. On the other hand, such virtues as faith, pure vision, compassion for sentient beings, these increase. Now in the stage of generation, we develop this divine pride. We assume the identity of the deity, him or herself, maybe in a wrathful form, a peaceful form, but in the midst of our practice is bound to be grasping. We can very easy to bring in samsara right into the midst of the stage of generation practice. So when we're cultivating or generating ourselves as a peaceful deity, we may think, I am so pretty. Oh, so pretty. And in the midst of that, I am. Ngao, it's called in Tibetan. Ngao, I am. And so we substantiate or reify ourselves in the midst of this so-called stage regeneration practice. What's needed when that type of grasping, this type of grasping to inherent existence occurs in the midst of stage regeneration practice? We need to bring in the stage of completion. We need to bring in the understanding of emptiness, the lack of inherent nature, and not just what is called tomba hitewa, or a mere kind of vacuity, just getting spaced out, or have a sense of the abyss. Not that. So the point here is to get rid of the grasping. Get rid of the grasping onto my way, my path, my tradition. I'm Golupa, I'm Nyingma. This kind of grasping, when they're criticizing each other, and the Gulupas are criticized for falling into the kind of the substantialist extreme of reifying or substantializing reality. The Nyingmapas are criticized as falling into the extreme of nihilism, of rejecting too much. So everybody sees the other ones as having extremes. Even this Gulupa monk here, maybe he's got a problem. If he doesn't see Tsongkhapa as being a Buddha, then he doesn't have the authentic reasoning. He's not really found pramana. So then he's got a problem too.
Is that true? General Sindri, then the Lekalia, some of them, the Shankaras of Zoran, Kumbada, Belgian, Chieti, Fonsoda, Chiedamara, Timareda, Sosa, they Kabatumes, and the Thomas, some of them, Argent, Lamate. Lama, I am some get Tommy about 10 and Sunday, Tommy about 10 and some Sosa, the Belgian. I am. Somebody, with the sheep in Java and the Kono, the Chiaramata. I don't know what Nimari Regate, Pilic, Nimari Regate, the Remarin, Kondo, on the Flower Lama and the Sunday, Temple Lama comes up. He cards in that. Come, some of that, the Pilic Song, I don't say, cheating and Lama song other to Jesus Montana. Lama come in the Halia and do that. Then Sunday will come on. You didn't listen to that Sunday. Then you can't do it. You give it. Then Sunday, Gerald and Nantak, Sunday Kadate and some again, Kadate and Sosa, dividing and each other. Then I mentioned that Sunday Rijidu. It's a Mongosga. Gyatrul Chinese, Mongosga. The child come got each other. And also, the Song Jim Damada, the Saudi Somali. Source of the young tips and consume. You tell me, Maladi, Maladi, come to Concord to go there as an Amara Gibson. This is your mother than yet. Maladi, Lama can eat and Lamka can eat different. Lamka to the Lama payment, the column payment. The then Guru was in shares and shut the state, Guru the cheaper than that. A bunch of the Lama can eat. There's some garbage. On Chimbat, Gmail on that. The moon, then turn Giro which is Lama can eat and big time. Inside, but then you cut out it. The camera, the cousin did balance and I'm not in Gio. 그래서 야가성에 gelpa 파치아 그랬다고 참 소소 얘기하는 게는 제일 단들이라고 상인이 시작하면 게는다 많이 propoize 그 말이야. 나 때로는 게는 생각이 다 육셔도 그 말이야. Nyingma Cultivating Sajja then the Pakala books you make it make them second thanks in my daughter getting some yellow budget and no my daughter today subject publishing another Kashiva another topic the number Jangan jadi macam, merji samram nasa nama tu, kaya, sahaja merji samram. Orang distilah pada kerja pandai dan sah berjaya jadi.
This pure vision of really authentic way of relating to spiritual teachers. So he didn't, like us, he didn't vacillate or had this kind of wavering attitude. We're kind of looking up to the teacher one day and looking down at the teacher the next day. He didn't vacillate back and forth. But he applied pure vision to the teacher and then followed the words of the teacher, unerringly followed exactly the teacher's instructions. So if we'd like to learn about this, then we should look at the accounts of the Buddha's previous lives. Look at his, called namtar, these paths which led to his full freedom, his full liberation. And not only the Buddha himself, but look at the great followers of the Buddha, of which there are many. Genyi, Karsa, Chonyi, Ngöndro, Chonyi. So the six, for example, the six ornaments and the two perfected ones, these are some of the great pundits, the great sages of the great Buddhist sages of India, people like Nagarjuna, Asanga, and so forth. Look at their lives, look at their life stories, or technically the term is hagiographies, but their life stories of how they followed the path of Dharma and brought it to its conclusion. So this is done by hearing, by thinking, by meditation, but first of all by hearing, by learning, and then really pondering the Dharma, such crucial phases of one's Dharma practice. We can look at other great exemplars, such as the Miserliness. And on the one hand, when we think of immediately, first of all, of just a guy who walked around with no clothes. I mean, a guy who walked around naked. Was that the essence of Miserliness, that he was a streaker? No, the exceptional quality was that he really had this exceptional way of devoting himself to his guru. I mean, pure practice of Guru Yoga, devoting himself to his Guru Mappa, and then following the words of the teacher, of his guru. Who benefits from this? Who's the recipient of the benefit by following the teacher's instructions exactly? Is it the teacher? The teacher get benefit from that, or is it the student? You look into this. Likewise for Guru Rinpoche. You can read his life story. We have a number of them now in English. And examine how he devoted himself to multiple teachers, one after another. You will learn this by first of all reading, by learning, and then pondering. It's likewise for Longchenpa, for Jigme Lingpa, and for Rinpoche, for Tsongkhapa himself. Look at the ways in which he devoted himself to his teachers. Likewise from the great patriarchs, the great lamas of the Sakya lineage. So these are the paradigms. These are the people who have set the examples for us. And then we can see for ourselves how well we emulate those great beings of the past. In the Gelugpa tradition, for example, when they're studying under a certain teacher, they always refer to the teachers Ngöndro Rinpoche, whoever their teacher may be, Tuku or not Tuku, Ngöndro Rinpoche, precious teacher. They don't say, oh my... La? Notice, Rinpoche says, stay seated. But in the Gelugpa tradition, this is the normal custom. When they refer to their own teachers, they always say Ngöndro Rinpoche, their precious teacher. Or teacher Rinpoche. They don't just say, oh my friend, like their Dhamma teacher, oh my friend, or my buddy, whom they can kind of reject or kind of just have this totally vacillating attitude towards, but really hold in great reverence their teacher, whomever it may be. This holds true for the Gelugpa tradition, it's equally true for the Nyingma, the Sakya, Gagyu. Now there may be some rotten apples in the barrel, there may be some teachers who are really not authentic, who don't really follow Dharma, people like me. But our task is to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, follow in the footsteps of the great holy beings of the past, who themselves devoted themselves to the accumulation of merit and to purification of obscurations, follow in their footsteps.
Are you getting old like this? You have to pee or you have to throw up or everything. That means you have to practice. Well, anyway, Patrul Rinpoche Lama ke tamlo de ta chana chini mo shi chana chini yara ke che nyas tam da lama tenta ke chi shu re lama ten na so lama ka ju ko na ka ma de na ne zeva te na so yu jam na tene sanji ka de ma che sanji ka ma che ji na chi jam lu ba cha so yin Patrul Namba in Namba Jamden Jugara Tamba Shingan Popats in the Mochetum to Jugar. So Tamba Shikar, Mochetum, Tabashik Matter, and somebody in the chop chart. Tamba Shingan, so Tambashik. Man Pocket. So the Tamba Marshigas, Tamba Taba Jap Tamanchi. Tamba juga dan itu, terusam ciri dan itu, ada baju itu, ada soal ada baju yang ada bahasanya, soalnya itu sahaja itu, sab cenang aja sih, jisim ini dan soalnya itu apa lepas, tapi mana mana tu, enggak sab cenang aja mesti yang mau bahasa soalnya juga, kalau nampak yang nak tahu orang mana, tidak yang dah. Gadget tinggal berapa? Tentang negara betul mana? Zongda pada sakit kisah kami. Tentang negara, lecet tinggal, gosip lecet tinggal. Gyatrul Rinpoche lihat orang negara. Tahu ni apa? Mana itu gosip. Rokam, potong. Isi ini. Kapan lalu lagi muda bisa kerja di jangan kerja kapan Israel.
So these points that I've been discussing, these have all been explained in books that have been written or translated into English. Within these various topics, the way of devoting oneself to one's spiritual mentor, Guru Yoga, this is what is most important. It's important to follow the words, follow the teachings, the instructions of your Lama. If you abandon that, then that's really the end of taking refuge. It's finished. And this just brings shame on Buddha Dharma. It's like the Buddha Dharma itself has been disgraced. Tibetans often point to Mao Zedong as being the great destroyer of Dharma, the person who destroyed Dharma in Tibet. It's easy to point fingers outside. But when we don't follow Dharma ourselves, people like me, then it's actually we ourselves, we should point the finger to ourselves. We're the ones who are destroying Dharma when we put shame on Dharma by not even applying ourselves to the practice. So again, the essence of the practice, cultivate faith, pure vision, engage in hearing the teachings, in learning and in reflection, accumulate merit, purify obscurations. By following on that path, then you'll eventually proceed along the 5 paths in the 10 Bodhisattva bhumis. This is the way to proceed. Without that, then, no. And so, with that pure vision, you receive the blessings of the Buddha. Even if the Lama in question is not a siddha like me, if you look upon with pure vision, receive the blessings of a Buddha. You may point to, you may have a Westerner as a teacher, one of the yellow-headed ones. Yellow-headed, yellow-headed ones. And if it's authentic teacher, you may view as Guru Rinpoche. You may. In which case you get blessings of Guru Rinpoche. So the blessings you receive really are related to the purity of your own vision. In the meantime, I'll go for Kempo. I'm very happy.
Maybe we keep there. We're going to need happening, Kimber happy to say.
Dogon ngazu niku Dogon ngazu kadi. Oh no, let's see. Maybe it's so happy because we're just finished. Jita Gemba Ngöndro Sampo Teda
and then good night. I'm not going to. Guru. Guru Adam. She does that in the she messed up in the